So you can see the background. I live right on the Gorge Waterway in Victoria, and
Oh, that's
and
nice.
so I have neighbors who are swans and
Oh,
geese, and my partner has a little friend that's a squirrel that comes to sit and eat peanuts with them on the front porch. And yeah, yeah.
I live about a block and a half from the river, so we had some swans fly in the other day here. So they were kind of circling overhead, not really giving us a close look, but I got a nice picture from David Attenborough and put it up on my other Facebook page. Had some cute little goslings. I like David Attenborough. He has nice nature shots. They always cheer me up. So pretty.
Yes, yes, definitely. Okay, so we have a chat going, and there's people on here. A few. We have a few viewers so far. But anyways, so I was looking over your blog link that you gave me and looking at all the stuff that's on that website. Quite
Yeah, I
interesting.
haven't updated it for a while, but I was like, oh, right, I need to get stuff to read. So these are a few of the books that
Wow.
I brought.
Yeah, I was going there going, well, I can say she's author of, wow. And you've
And
done a lot of really interesting things. So you've done novels yourself, but you've
yeah,
also done, on your website, the link to Dalton's Daughter
hmm
that goes to Amazon is
hmm
not working. It's giving, sorry, page not found. In
Oh,
case,
yeah, I had it, a new release of it that was a longer, more detailed version. I guess a unabridged version released. So that would be the new one. So I have to update that.
okay, so
My poor About Me page, I was looking at it, I think it was day before yesterday, and it was like to be released in 2016 to 2017. And I thought, wow, it's been a while since I've been here. I need to be a better PR person for myself.
I hear
That's
you. I hear you. I was looking over my website and thinking, holy crap, I need to do some work there. And I spend, if I'm going to update, it tends to be the company website, right? So, and even that needs some work. So I got to do some work on that too. It's hard to keep up with all this stuff, hey?
it is. And like they have the rule of for every hour writing, you're supposed to do 1 hour promoting.
Yeah.
Uh, that does not happen.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that one. I
No,
tend to
that,
spend way more time editing than anything else. It's annoying.
which is good.
Yeah.
It's good to be editing, but uh,
There's other
I like to
stuff.
write.
Yeah, me too. There's other stuff to work on. I was working on my my own actual writing this week. It was kind of nice, a nice feeling. So I got somebody here. Giveaways today, ha ha ha. Yes, we do giveaways. Yes, and yes, we will have giveaways today. You know the drill. You have to type exclamation point iBooks in the chat to get in on the giveaway. Okay, so back to Virginia. So you've done novels and short, and I guess short stories and poetry as well. But I really was interested in the you've done anthologies, which we've done too. But you've done this collaborative fiction
Hmm.
where a bunch of authors are writing the same book together, and I thought that's really interesting. How does that work?
Well, that it started off with an invitation. I run a very small, select group that's called Writing Challenge Fun. And I get a lot of people who ask to be part of it, and I don't always say yes. It asks a few basic questions, and most people don't bother to answer them.
Uh-huh.
So, it's like if you can't bother answering the questions, I'm not going to let you in. And it's a writing site that is purely supportive writing. Like, it's not a place for critical editing. It's a place for people who are, I mean, you can be a long-time writer, but even if you're just starting out, it's supposed to be there for people to support each other and, just positivity. So this lady joined it and she said, I was thinking of doing this collaborative novel. And she kind of came on a little strong, and I was like, oh, I don't know. And it turned out that she was an airline stewardess who was on pregnancy leave. So this was her idea for while she was on leave. And I was like, I asked her a whole bunch of questions, essentially, was she in there to like pillage the writers and take their hopes and dreams? And she didn't seem to be. She seemed quite friendly. So I was like, okay, yeah, we can do this. Like, let's set up some basic rules. This isn't for money. This is for charity. And, we're going to set this up so that it makes sure that any writing anyone does, they keep the copyright to that writing. And that was kind of the first time. And the first one was a real mess. It didn't make any sense. And it was at best like kind of like a vanilla romance story. But I took away from that the idea that it was good for people. It took a lot of people who had never written as long of a story of that and kind of launched them into it.
Oh, yeah.
And I took away from it a lot of fails and a lot of things that could be done better. So the lady went back to being in the work industry, and she didn't stay around. But I coalesced it into about 5 to 8 writers working on a novel. So not quite such a big thing. She had about, I think it was like 30 or 40 people working on. Yeah, and it was really hard for it to make sense with that many people. It was really done for the writers, not the readers.
Yeah, because you would have a real hard time with continuity in your plots and character development with that.
It was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It didn't. It was a lot like one of those campfire stories.
Yes. That's what I was envisioning. Wait a minute, I've done this before.
Yeah.
The ghost story that goes off the rails around the campfire.
It's not going to sell. It's a novelty item.
Yeah.
So what I did was I took and I made characters. And it took a few false starts, but we eventually developed the Irregulars, which is a series about psychic homeless children. And they each have a different skill or talent. They have a different backstory. And I and one other person came up with the skill, the backstory, the basic outline for the child. And then we talked to writers who I knew were skilled or at least had potential. And it wasn't quite so, I don't know, loosey-goosey.
Right.
And it worked great. And it was a lot. I would lay down some rules at the start. I was like, okay, this is going to have editing in it. So if you go off the rails, I'm calling it out. I'm saying, no, this doesn't work.
Right.
And we did the first one, and it was good. I had to do some pretty hardcore editing on it, but it was a story you wanted to read.
That's great.
Yeah. And then we had a couple of writers who were like, okay, I like doing it, but I'm writing in my own career, so I don't want to continue with the sequel. But we had, I think it was 6 out of 8 writers stay on, which is pretty good. And we're working on the sequel now. The sequel makes even more sense. It's more cohesive, and it's like now people want to write stories about their characters individually. They have such a good grasp of things. And now they're saying like, okay, I want to take my character and I understand their history so much. I want to write a novel about my character as well.
Oh, cool.
So it's become a whole universe.
Spin-offs. Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody wants to talk about their character. They want to engage with their character. They feel like their character has become part of their life. So, yeah, and then we have a universe as well that is from Starklight Press. And that's a science fiction universe. And we decided to bring the collaborative novel to that universe. Essentially, we thought, well, people know these characters so well. What if we let people, instead of just writing short stories and stuff about it and write in the world, what if we let them write inside of this collaborative novel idea? And I think we've done three, or we're on the 4th one. We're doing the Arkellen Treaty now. And that one turned into a very complex storyline. So that one is going to be a 2-parter. I'm editing it up now, the first part. And yeah, it's pretty amazing how advanced it can actually be.
Oh, that startled me. That was a notice that someone just bought some merch. That's cool. Thank you very much. And I saw a follow earlier too.
Mm-hmm.
Candia Chumalin, thanks for the follow. Sorry. This is a world of Twitch.
Probably should have warned her about that.
It's really been good during the pandemic to, I think, the collaborative novels, they've really been going when everything's been a little bit quiet and I don't feel like working on some of my other projects. The collaborative novels just really make you feel engaged with other people because
I can see that,
these
yeah.
long-standing worlds, and it's like, yeah, this is something. I still have these connections to these people and these made-up people too.
Yeah, it's almost like ongoing fan fiction, where you
yeah.
have the same idea of the same backstory kind of thing, and then you just can continue. That's really cool. I can see collaboration in this, especially in the pandemic environment, where you feel so isolated that a collaborative effort would really go over well. I can see that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We had a writers group for a while, and one of the ladies in it was a teacher, so she asked us to bring the idea into her classroom. It was a junior high classroom. We ended up staying for almost a whole semester and doing an entire collaborative novel. I wouldn't have published the collaborative novel that they came up with, but it was great for the people, like the kids involved. And all of them said, I didn't know I could be a writer.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that anyone could be a writer. It's a really good format to teach people that they can be writers.
And teach them the importance of being able to express yourself in ways that other people can understand it as well.
Yeah,
to
and connecting.
Proper grammar and so on, but also clarifying your thoughts. Yeah.
And paying attention to what, like reading comprehension. I was editing one portion, and this one writer it was actually me who had written the previous section. They pulled up, and it was like in a cul-de-sac in a, upper class neighborhood. And I don't know why, but maybe he was distracted, whatever. But this cul-de-sac in a regular suburban neighborhood all of a sudden turned into a mansion with like acres of land, and there were guard gates. And I was like, hey, like, dude, what are you thinking?
How does that did you read the paragraph before? Yeah.
Did you read the whole section? Like what?
Yeah.
So yeah, you have moments like that, and it is shocking how people cannot pay attention sometimes, but
Right. Yeah. It sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
it is. It's a lot of fun, and especially during the pandemic. It's
I saw is this the that would be the one that was there was a world to it that you're talking about, right? But there was also there was Ambition with it had 19 international authors
oh, that was the initial one.
and
That
a couple others that were collaborative writing challenge was the
yeah, that was the lady the who had been the stewardess.
Oh, that was
That was
Ambition? That was the
yeah,
first one? Oh yeah. Okay, I see it amongst your books. And then
and it's no longer a press, but it was a lot of fun.
oh, collaborative writing challenge is no longer a press? That's
No,
okay.
no, she went back to her regular
Right.
life.
So it sounded to me like that would be an awesome, like a weekend competition thing where you get together a bunch of writers and in the weekend you write the novel together. That would
I think that would be fun.
that would be loads of fun. Yeah.
I think that would be a blast.
Yeah. So it was giving me ideas.
Would be fun.
And we're trying to read my notes here. I liked your compendium of speculative fiction. So you have what 4 volumes of those are all short stories, but all speculative fiction.
Yeah, those are the Starklight ones. Or
Yeah.
are those? But
So Starklight Press is a baby of your husband's, right?
my husband's, yeah.
Yeah, he had a similar idea that I did, that writers could maybe have a little bit more control and maybe a
Exactly.
bigger chunk of the change if we kind of helped them get there and backed off. So that's pretty much what Philidith Publishing does as well. Is we help people publish their stuff, and it has to meet traditional standards. Like, I'm not a vanity press, but we take a commission when we contract with somebody. We don't charge anything, and we take a commission from the proceeds of their book. So the cost of the book, it goes out to retail. The difference between the cost and the retail is the author's take, and we take a percentage of that. So every book sold, we take that. So we wait, and they get the greater percentage is theirs, and so they're making more of a percentage of each sale, but they're also encouraged that this baby's not going to go anywhere if you don't get out there and market it. Marketing is the author's job too, and
Well,
predominantly.
I mean, that's true of any press. Like,
Yeah.
you can sign on with one of the big 5, and the first thing they're going to ask you is, what is your following like right now?
Yep. So you really have to work it yourself. But anyways, I had the same idea that the author should have more control and more of the end result, So
Well,
I was
I'm not going to say any names because the writing world in Canada is very small, but a friend of ours, she was published with one of the larger presses in Canada, and she wrote quite a few books, and then she was done her series. She didn't make a lot of money. She didn't make much money at all. she tried to promote, went to the conventions, did the stuff, and then she wanted to go independent after. And they told her, no, we own your world, we own your characters. If you want them back, it'll cost you $35,000.
Wow. Did it sell enough for that to be a thing, or?
No, they did not sell enough
'Cause-
for that to be a thing. But that was the cost
Wow.
for her to own her own world.
I'd be saying, if you think my book's worth that, how about you give me my cut now? Yeah.
That
Wow.
was the contract she signed, though.
Yeah, you see, you have to watch
And
this.
You do. And I had already had a brush with Hollywood, a couple of brushes, and I was not happy with the end result. And my husband was like, okay, if you're going to do this, let's do it in a way so that we don't end up mortgaging our house one day.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was pretty much my husband's idea. And as soon as he did it, we had all these submissions come in, and it turned into a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the same for me. I decided I didn't like what was out there for my own stuff, and started started a press. And then people were coming to me and saying, geez, that's a really good idea. So
Yeah,
yeah.
Like, I love to work with other presses. I always like to get the rights to my writing back after a certain period of time. But I've worked with so many presses at this point, and it's great promotion for everyone because, it's, names are dropped both ways. You can
Sure.
tag something and it's shared. And I really I just had so many good experiences, and I stay friends with the people that I publish with. Later on, I end up coming back and being like, hey, you meet up at a convention and it's like, hey, that was great. What you doing now? And it's just amazing where these things can lead to.
And I think too that the various presses have their niche, their genre that they really push the most, or they seem to have been more successful with. And when someone comes to me that's not something that I'm going to those conventions, or I'm going to be able to promote that particular genre, I will send them off to somebody I know that does that and does it better.
Yeah.
And I think that's also because I'm looking at it as an author, like you are, that you want the best. You would want somebody to do that for you. So
Exactly.
you will do that for somebody else. So yeah, so I think it's important for us to shake hands, be friends, and work together on things.
Yeah,
So-
it's this whole concept of like a friend made,
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
again, it's nice to finally meet you and have these conversations.
Yeah, we did meet actually a while ago in VCon.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, we did.
that's right. I miss VCon. That was
I miss all the conventions.
Yeah, there's so much fun hanging out for the weekend with a bunch of people who are sort of after the same thing. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
miss the writing retreats and, just, I don't know.
We'll be back to it someday.
Yeah.
Very soon, hopefully. So do you have something you want to read first?
Sure, I have a very big stack of books here. So I was going through and I was marking, I was like, PG-13, let's make sure not to drop any bombs here.
Yeah, I've taken the adult setting off my Twitch channel, so I have to be careful.
So I have one of my novels here. I think it's fairly safe.
Okay.
I'm not really. I was trying to think. I was like, what is PG-13 these days?
And just try not to
I,
describe sexual acts. That'll probably save you.
yeah, I don't think I do that anywhere through there, and I don't think I drop any F-bombs or anything in that immediate one.
Okay.
But I've actually, this is a really fun one. It's this Game Changers book. We have Game Changers for the men and Great Ladies.
Well,
And
I saw the great ladies. I didn't see the game changers on your list of books there.
yeah, see, hold
Oh
it
yeah.
up here.
Okay.
I'd like to do one where we mingle the two, but
You can read whatever you like. Just do it in 5-minute chunks. And should I do a giveaway first
Do
before?
it after.
sure, why don't you
Do it after.
do a giveaway first?
Do it
We've
after?
got 300 people in here.
Do it
Wait
after,
for the
okay.
bots to catch up.
Okay. So he said we have to wait for the bot to catch up because we got 372 viewers. That's very cool. Hello, folks. So if you've come in new, we're speaking with Virginia Caraway Stark, who is an author and amazing publishing queen, and she's going to read to us here. And if you want to get in the giveaway, which we'll do after she reads, you have to do !books in the chat, and then you'll be entered in the draw for the giveaway. And these people have been looking at my face this whole time. I'm going to change this to guest speaker. There you go. Now they're looking at your wonderful face, and you can read. Okay,
Nice,
so
slightly messy room.
you need a green screen. Alrighty, go for it.
So this is Game Changers. It talks about a variety of men throughout history who are game changers. We do have a book for the ladies who changed things as well. I'm going to read about Socrates. And mind, this is fiction. It is interpretive. So no nitpicking on any historical inaccuracies, because this is my interpretation of Socrates. Socrates, you are under arrest for many crimes, the captain intoned, questioning the state religion and corrupting the youth of Athens being the top crimes, each punishable by death. From what I have seen here, I have no choice but to concur that you have indeed corrupted the youth. Corrupted us how? Plato exploded. The captain looked at young Plato disdainfully. Look at you, defending him, an accused criminal, and giving him sanctuary in your father's house. He's convinced you that he is more important than the honor of your house and the name of your father. He hasn't convinced me of anything. He was waiting for you to come and arrest him while I was trying to explain to him that the Senate is full of enemies and that after the most recent defeat they were screaming out for retribution. You're only digging him deeper into the underworld with every word you speak, the captain smirked. I knew the look. I knew the pain in the captain's eyes. He had lost friends, perhaps even family in the latest campaign. He was as glad for someone to blame as the senators. Plato, please. I'm already awake and dressed. I'll go with the captain willingly. The Senate was insane with rage over their defeat. They regarded the might of Athens to have been greater in their youth and blamed me for tearing down the fabric of society with my constant questions for why our soldiers hadn't won at an impossible battle. I had argued against a second campaign. I had argued against the death of the generals. I had called the king and the Senate idiots. They would have someone to blame, and I had made many enemies in the Senate, that haven of self-proclaimed wise men that I had proven again and again to be fools. My students came to visit me before the trial. They each offered to stand as witnesses for my character, and nearly all of them begged me to use my limited time that I was given to speak to form an apology and to beg for my life. They will likely be happy with a fine and an apology. My father will give me the money. however much they demand to help free you. He knows what a mighty teacher you have been and values your influence on me. He would think it nothing to pay a small fortune to protect you, Plato begged. I won't take money from your father, Plato. You must, you have nothing. It was a cruel truth. I was wise, it seemed, but that hadn't made me canny in the matter of earthly matters. Quite the opposite. I was so entranced with my mission and with discovering as much of the nature of the universe along the way that I had quite forgotten about physical needs. There was always food when I needed it, a bed when I was tired, and if there was no bed, there would be a place where I could sleep and look at the dance of the stars while I drifted off, wondering all the while what stars really were. Would I get a chance to find out what they were when I died? Would my spirit rise out of my body and fly amongst them? I hoped so. I was curious to see them and so many other things that I could see but not touch. What did the surface of the moon feel like? Surely it had a surface. Would I walk on it as a man, or would I float as a spirit if I was severed loose from my mortal moorings and left to fly as high and as far as I desired? Or would I close my eyes for the last time, my body racked with the agony that death by hemlock brings, only to wake up inside the womb of a woman? I was sure that souls returned to earth again and again. It was knowledge that had been proven to me time and again by asking even the most simplest of human questions. I could ask a slave with no schooling questions until they could discover the most difficult of mathematical problems. It was all down to knowing what questions to ask, and that was the hardest part, knowing the questions to ask. The answers were already in everyone's mind. I had found that I had a gift for drawing that knowledge out by knowing the questions that unlocked the knowing, just like a key in a lock. Timaeus, a good friend and a worthy debater, had helped me on many occasions to demonstrate on a range of people that this was true even in the most unlearned of people. From young children to serving maids to men older than I was now, any of them could be encouraged to remember things that would be impossible for them to know unless they had lived many times before. Just going to skip ahead a little bit here. I refused to apologize because I wasn't at all sorry, and I wasn't going to stop or change any of my behavior. I hadn't ever lied to myself or to anyone else, and I wasn't about to start now. One clay pot with a spout stood above another clay pot. I stood alone at the center of men who had at many times been friends and more often had cursed my name. A slave walked in at an order and poured water into the top clay pot. There was a basic water clock, and it dictated how long I had to speak in my own defense. Since I had requested no character witnesses on my behalf, despite having spent several days listening to the pontifications of character witnesses against me, much to my amusement as they stomped their feet and folded their arms with their childish complaints against me and my very existence, the sound of water started to pour, and I had a moment to curse my aging bladder before gathering up my words to speak before the Senate one last time. Plato wrote a very pretty piece on what I said that day. It was cleaned up quite a bit from what I actually said. But, as I said, he admired me, and in his mind, even at the end, I could do no wrong. His recounting had me say many more words in my defense. Great, sweeping statements that were both rousing and evocative of all I had stood for in my long life. Here, I will only tell you the basic thrust of my words, saying them without any polish, even the thin veneer of polish that I managed. I was so disgusted with these men that they had to have their war so badly, and I mean that statement in both sense, that they had committed the act of war so badly. They couldn't live without having someone to blame. I stood before them and I said, again, recall this without any political veneer and certainly not polished as Plato would have the world believe my last speech was. In fact, it was one of the most blunt arguments of my life. I was angry in my spirit and my rational mind had failed to find an explanation for their idiocy. The human condition had thwarted my intellect with its stupidity. Senators, some of you were once friends of mine, and others of you have always hated the sight of my face. You hate me because I forced you to think. Apparently this is a great cruelty and a crime. For here I stand on trial for my life before you for daring to ask you why and how and when. You are spoiled and unschooled children. And when you were frustrated and couldn't have your way, you chose to blame me for it because I was the one who first told you that what you were doing was foolish. Unable to debate the subject with me, you first shouted until you drowned out my voice, and then, when my words proved to be true, you decided to kill me over the trumped-up charges of asking questions of the gods and corrupting the youth. To these charges I have only this to say. Do not the gods like to be questioned? Think of Ulysses, Achilles, these heroes of legend who questioned the gods and made demands of them. Certainly these, like myself, made enemies, but their names are remembered for their valor and for their wiles. As to your charges of corrupting the youth of Athens, to that I have no response. I never intended to corrupt anyone, and if helping people to ask questions is a corruption, then I pity the poor materials that the youth have been made of. Questions should strengthen, not corrupt. Your charges are an insult to your sons and your heirs. If you believe this charge against me, truly, you should be ashamed of the fruits of your loins, for they were never more than dust, if they crumpled into dust for being asked a few questions. I have been told that I ought to apologize. I paused long enough to find Plato's pale face and dropped a wink his way. I won't apologize. I have been sent by the gods to drive you to action as a gadfly annoys a horse into snapping and kicking, so I have pestered you with my constant queries. Now I tell you, rather than corrupting Athens, I have strengthened the fabric of Athens. It is only your own stupidity that has been responsible for tearing through that strength. I'll stop there. We all know what happens in the end, of course. I hope we do.
There's your applause. That was good. That was really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I felt like I was right there.
Huh. Yeah,
There.
there's quite a bit longer at the start, and of course it does go all the way through to the end. And the end is rather sad.
Right.
But of course he's quite a noble character, really. And he's not afraid of death. So he's questioning death right to the end and curious about what it'll be like. Very childlike and interested to see if he'll get to find out about the stars and the surface of the moon.
Yeah, it's quite a character development. So in my chat, we had
1,300 of them?
wow, we now have 1,850 people watching. That's terrific. Thank you, folks.
Socrates brings in a crowd. Yay!
Yeah, he does. Yeah. So one of my regulars, is a professor at a university who has a class, that computer programming class, and his class students frequently watch, and I guess they watch the recorded VODs of my Twitch as well later in the next day, because this is quite late for them. So they're up late tonight. They're apparently having a late night class, and the whole class is watching us. So welcome to Bob's class, and you know.
We call him Bob, because that's what he wants.
Yeah, he's
Do a crash course on Socrates.
Yeah, do it. Take a crash course on Socrates right there. Anyways, I appreciate the support, and thanks for staying up late, you guys. And then we had a couple of follows in there too. Accord and Texture Diff. Names are interesting. Thanks for the follows, and a few other cheers and welcome to you guys who spoke up. There we go. Somebody asked how often I stream. I stream Sunday night, Tuesday night, and Thursday night every week. Sunday night I play Age of Empires. Tuesday night I play Among Us, and Thursday night is open mic. And so tonight is the open mic, and this is Virginia Caraway Stark that was just reading for us, and she's with us tonight, and we'll chat a little bit more, but we're going to do a giveaway draw first because we promised. So if you want to run the drum roll.
Oh, you want the drum roll too?
You want me to?
No, yeah, he's got it somewhere there. There we go. That was it. And Weevil Caviar has won the giveaway. Weevil Kevlar. Weevil Kevlar has won the giveaway. So you need to whisper to Hyperlinks 256 and he'll tell you how to claim that prize. Now, were you able to, Virginia, figure out how you could throw some of your ebooks in here?
Yes, actually, what I talked to, I talked to my husband, the publisher at Starklight Press, and what we concluded was that we could do a giveaway of a physical book. So you can send an email to editor@starklightpress.com, and what we need to do is decide what the prize should be. So I'm thinking probably Game Changers.
Okay. All right, so you're going to get possibly, well, now we have 1385. You're going to get like 1,000 emails. So,
well, you have to say what story I read from in the email. And that's the trick.
So you have to say,
you have to say,
what story did she read from the book Game Changers?
And
And
in order to win, you have to mention what character.
oh, what the person's name was that it was a story about. There you go.
Yeah.
That'll narrow it down.
I could just see that.
It should.
Should nail it, and I'm thinking first come, first serve too. Right? The first email that's correct is going to win that book.
Yeah.
All right.
So you'll be sent an email back to get your address and stuff like that, and then you can get a physical copy.
Very cool. Oh, Weevil Kevlar responded.
Yeah, I saw that.
Said, "Yay, me! I finally won something."
Whispered to me as soon as you said it.
Someone's asking where you're from. So, I'm from Victoria. Where are you, Virginia?
I'm in the Okanagan in BC.
There you go. And
Yeah, I guess
thank you for the follow, Nietzsche Shrew. There we go. Okay.
Did you catch that?
What was that?
Class reward that they're watching the show because they all did well on their exam, that whole project.
Oh, I see. The reason the class is watching me is it's a party that's a reward for
Having
The-
a PC party.
their good class exam grades. Well done, people.
Oh.
Well done.
So how good was the grade, I wonder?
I guess their grades were all really good.
Oh,
Well, I could say, well, it's because Bob's a really good professor.
Yeah, we could go with
We could say that. I've seen his writing, so I mean, and he can express himself
funny
well.
'cause he's teaching computer science.
communication is important.
Yeah, he's submitted some short stories because I asked for people to send me stuff, and I would read it for them if they were too, shy to come on screen, kind of deal. And he sent a bunch of stuff, and it's really good. So I was trying to convince him that he should publish.
Yeah, what genre do you generally publish?
A lot of sci-fi, a lot of horror.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. I do have one
so we're on the
that's
same page.
pretty much. I just working on one now, just in the final edits of some of it's speculative fiction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do anthologies as well. They're like all different genres, and some of them have poetry and prose in them. So they're all different. But yeah, similar stuff from what you do. I'm looking to do, like, I've got into LGBTQ stuff. I have one author that writes a fair bit of just general fiction, kind of, but it's a lot of coming out history through the 80s in his stuff, and then he edited a anthology called Sharing Our Journeys, Queer Elders Tell Their Stories, and there's some really poignant like nonfiction, like memory type stuff that's in those short stories. They're all true stuff, and really tear-jerking, and it holy crap, sells like faster than I can bring it in. It's so we're going that way as well, and I'm looking for people of color and Indigenous authors, and looking to sort of broaden and support a really inclusive press label. So see where we're at, where we're slowly doing that, being able to recruit that.
Yeah, I have a few people I can probably send your way.
Cool. And the guy that edited the Sharing Our Journeys is doing a version 2 that's Queer Elders of Color, and he's slowly getting people to get their contributions together for that.
Okay.
So what is this? Ramit Sendowns.
Don't forget about the smut.
Thanks for the follow. And what smut? Oh, and smut. I publish a fair bit of smut too.
Define smut.
Erotica.
Okay. I did I guess you'd call it I don't know, general smut. I don't know. It was, I'm trying to remember the press's name. It was really quite the step for me to do, because when I wrote for my first public writing, it was for the films, like it was for movies.
Right.
So they wanted sex scenes, and I had to do, I think it was 1 or 2 sex scenes, and I didn't feel very comfortable writing it. I actually talked to the director, and I was like, can I just write they have sex? And he was like, yeah, that's okay. So that was a big step for me.
That was your screenplay? They have sex.
Yeah, that was my screen direction. They have sex, end of scene. So yeah, that was literally what I wrote. So when I got into writing, it was actually the first one you mentioned. I think I have it here somewhere. The one for the writers' collaboration. And the one lady said to me, she said, you write really good romance.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I do. And I was very surprised, because I don't think of myself as a romance author after they have sex.
It takes it's difficult to write. I write erotica, and I have one of my books is a collection of erotic short stories, and it's difficult to find a way to describe body parts that's original when like there's only so, and so that's a bit taxing, but in terms of the activities, they're really secondary to the intent behind them. Mm-hmm. So I tend to, when I'm writing, focus on what's the intent here, dominance, or what, I gotta watch because I'm PG here on this Twitch, but and so it's less about what fits in where, but I like to, when I'm editing other people's stuff, because I get somebody else to edit mine. When I'm editing somebody else's stuff, I'm just sort of closing my eyes and imagining, is that physically possible? And would you really want to do that in that moment, and things like that? So that's.
And I think the keep it simple, stupid
Yeah. Yeah.
thing is really important. Like I'm part of a Facebook writing group where they share like stupid love scenes, essentially,
Right.
which is really amusing. And I won't get into it too much because of, PG. But there was one shared, and it was so non-descriptive. I actually feel comfortable sharing it in a PG environment. The phrase barrel roll was used
Okay.
in terms to a lady's top.
Okay.
They barrel rolled across him. And he was described as giving her a salutation.
Wow.
And this was like really serious, like this was described like really earnestly and like heat of the moment, and it was like,
Would you really want to say that? Yeah.
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 And this was like actually a famous writer who did this.
Interesting.
I was very disturbed.
Some people, well, so you're writing outside your comfort zone. That's what that says to me. Is that person's not used to writing.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, like, I mean, you write what you know. So if you don't have a lot of
Apparently he didn't know that.
yeah, if you don't have a lot of experience about that, then it would be difficult to write. So and also writing erotica is different from filming erotica, right? The whole point to books is that they inspire the imagination, not that they tell you everything that there is to know, right? So you're sketching the scenario. You're not describing every intimate detail. It's not necessary. In fact, the less you do, the better, because people are going to read it and go, oh, well.
Well, like it brings to mind almost like a dog fight, like airplanes, and like it's very aggressive, and yeah, it was, yeah, I really enjoyed those actually. The really bad descriptions is like things so not to do.
Yeah, that could be the subject of an entirely different program.
It really could be.
Things not to do. Things I've seen done that. Wow, why would you do that? Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
I might have to change the rating, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen some interesting things. Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
so what else do you have for us? Tell me. Can you tell me?
Mhm.
The list of your books that you not the anthologies, just you yourself are the only author on the book.
Well, I have some anthologies that I am the only author of.
Okay.
I have a really hard time with this question.
I was going through your website, and the only one I could see that was the Dalton's Daughters, but I knew there was others there.
Yes, I have the set, the Carnival Fun series. So this has 3 novels in it now, with a 4th one coming. So this is, it's kind of done off of chess. This is Red Queen takes Red Rook. I have this thing that I do with writing, which is terrible. And once I send something off to the publisher, I kind of erase it from my mind because I worry about acceptance.
Aww.
So it's a great tactic for publishers, bad tactic for interviews after.
Yes.
And so I cannot give you an entire list of everything. I would have to, but it is my goal. What I'm working on now is a binder of my achievements.
There you go. That the website where it says titles by Virginia, there's a list of, and all the book covers are there, and so you can go through there and see some of the stuff. But like you say, it's not updated, so there's stuff missing. Tell me about the book in your hand, about the series.
Sure. This is an interesting series. I wrote the first 2 books and then I got run over by a minivan. So,
I saw that on your Facebook. I saw the bruises. Holy crap.
yeah, that was with minivan. And then I rolled up on the hood and down. And the character of Verna is pretty much me in another life. And I don't usually write me. So this was quite the concession. And Verna's pretty messed up. She takes a lot of pills. She takes them with alcohol. And I was really disturbed because some of the pills she takes, I got prescribed after my accident.
Ah.
And it was one of those cases of I wrote and then it kind of a bit too much of my writing became reality. Not to say that I abused the pills, it's just I had not ever taken prescription medication before my accident. So it was creepy. It was one of those things, and it was odd because I was writing another character in the Irregulars, and she had PTSD, and she was also taking prescription medication. Again, some of her medication I also ended up on.
Interesting. So is it literature for forecasting, whatever, reality or reality impacting your writing? A little bit of both, hey? Where could I go with this if life doesn't work real well? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I don't know how much writers work off of. I mean, I know we work off of our subconscious a lot. Dalton's daughter, part of what she talks about is losing a baby. I had a miscarriage, and the last scene that I wrote on it was talking about the smell of a baby, all these things, and what would the baby been like. To finish writing that scene, I had to finish writing that scene after I recovered from the hospital.
Wow.
From my miscarriage.
Oh, that's hard.
And it was like I mean, on a subconscious level, I must have known I was pregnant or something. How much do we know? Like it's bizarre.
Do you dream dreams and write them into your stuff you're working on?
Definitely.
Yeah, I do too. There's a novel that I'm working on that one of the chapters come right out of a dream. Yeah, it was. That's a horror novel, so that'll tell you what I dream about.
Yeah, and since the accident, I actually do a weird thing. I call it sleep writing. It kind of freaks my husband out because I'll write like 45,000 words in a night. I don't really remember what I write, but it makes sense. But it's kind of on a darker level than what I would write when I'm awake.
So you like sleepwalk to the computer and type a bunch of stuff, or you handwrite this?
I usually sleep. Usually I'll do a lot of writing in bed, so my computer's close by, and I'll take my computer out and I'll start writing. And sometimes my eyes will be closed, sometimes they'll be open. But my husband says that he can always tell because when I normally type, he says my typing sounds like rain on a tin roof.
Right.
But when it's like sleep typing, it sounds like a monsoon, he says.
Oh, wow.
It's just coming so hard and so fast. And one day I opened up my computer, I'm going through my files, and I'll find a weird title. Like, Eel Island was one of them. And I opened it up and I was like, oh, this must be what I'm editing for someone. And I'm looking through it and I'm like, well, wait a minute. No, I think I wrote this. This is my writing. And then I looked at the date and time it had been written, and yeah, it was me.
But you were asleep. Yeah,
Is it
I've written some weird stuff, but not asleep. I've like I don't type in my sleep, but I've handwritten stuff. Like for a while there, I would wake up and write out like a dream or something. I'll write out the main points of it so that I'd remember. So I used to keep that. But right now I have an iPad, so I may start typing in my sleep. Just heads up. Okay. I've got a note here on the chat, which stopped because I rolled back. By the way, the class average was 95%. That's pretty good class average.
That's a very good class average.
Yeah. Are you active in real life?
A+.
Are your books on Amazon?
Yes, they are. Just put in Virginia Caraway Stark and you will find most of my books.
Right. And in the description, well, we can give, what's your website is Virginia Caraway Stark.
It's just for virginiastark.wordpress.com.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if the middle name was on the website. So that's the website. So virginiastark.wordpress.com, and there's a whole list of her books and stuff there, and links to all the Amazon if you do. But I mean, you just go to Amazon and search her. My stuff's on Amazon too. Oh man, I need some more friends. Oh no, back. I like what. It's like that Will Ferrell movie, Stranger Than Fiction. A bit, yeah. Hey.
What?
I
haven't seen that. What is that?
That's he I can't remember. I hate Will Ferrell, so I can't. I have not seen this movie, but I gather it's he writes stuff and then that happens.
I wonder if it's on Amazon Prime.
Probably. I can't stand Will Ferrell, so it would. But most likely.
I opted out of Netflix, so.
Try
Amazon Prime one, so.
Try that or Crave. Crave comes with your cable usually. Wanted to let you know I really enjoy your stream. Keep on doing what you're doing. Thank you very much. Those are striking eels. If you don't believe me, just shrieking eels. If you don't believe me, just wait. Really? You should stream more. Yes, I should. Let's go. It's the person who said that about Will Ferrell said it. We should see that movie. Well, I tell you, if Will Ferrell wasn't in it, I'd be willing to do that. But I just
Stranger Than Fiction.
Can't.
Shrieking eels. That was a Princess Bride quote.
Oh, those are shrieking eels. If you don't believe me, just wait. Was a Princess Bride quote.
Oh yes. That's a good show.
And I'm a Philistine because I did not know that. Plays it straight in that role. Does he? Because wow, I cannot stand his. Even when he's Saturday Night Live, I would change the channel. I can't take him. So. But he's.
I have no strong opinions, so I'm good to watch it.
So he's, apparently it's a dramatic role for him, so I might be able to suffer through that. Okay. There's not very many that I feel like it's just, but no. And every year at Christmas when Alf comes out, I just go to hiding. Like, oh my God, I can't stand it.
Maybe I did watch it, but I think I fell asleep. So maybe I fell asleep and wrote something. Who knows? I got a couple of poems published recently too. That was another thing that happened. They haven't come out yet. And speaking of things that you don't remember, one of the poems that got published, a friend of mine was like, asking me about the inspiration for one. It's called Her Wings. And it mentions headlights. So my first assumption was that it was inspired by my accident. But then I was looking at it, and it talks about like frost giants and all these other concepts. I can't read it to you because I've just sold the rights to Polaris Star, which is a child of Borealis magazine.
Oh, right. Yeah, absolutely. I noticed on your new projects thing on your blog, you were saying that Under Okanagan Skies is a poetry anthology, and this I like this Camellia Unfolding, Purity Unmarred, another collection of poetry about surviving abuse.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty interesting work there. Do you have those? Aren't published yet?
Those aren't published yet, no.
Do you have anything from them you could read?
Yes, I do. Would you like to hear one from the first one?
Sure, one sec. What is the... There's a bit of noise in the background for me, and I'm not sure if it's...
Is it from my place?
I don't know if it's... Hang on one sec. Yeah, I think it might be your Zoom. That's okay. It's got a little bit of a, like someone's tapping on the mic or something.
I think my husband put on the laundry, which is a great trade in a husband. It's on the spin cycle right now. So
Oh, that's maybe what I'm hearing. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. I just thought, is my computer going to blow up or what's going on here?
Okay. So, I can read one from each of them. Yeah, how about if I see two good ones. I'll start with one from Under Okanagan Skies. This is a real favorite.
Okay.
This is about a lady who I just adore. She taught me how to play the ukulele. And I think she looks like a young Sissy Spacek, but or that rather young Sissy Spacek looks like her when she would have been young. Now she's an older lady and she still looks beautiful to me. So, 1 second, I'm going to take a drink. This poem is called Maureen. How cunningly your innocence beguiles the most cynical of us. With a glance over your shoulder and the tilt of your nose, you charm us. Now you have grown older. Some would say old, but I would call them heretical, because you are apparent to me as the small girl with long curls down her back, walking on the seashore at low tide, when the beach is at its best, all its treasures laid bare. For small feet and hand to explore, gather in your little apron, clever bare feet picking their way over the slime-covered sharp stones, to pick periwinkles, cockles, and mussels. Alive, alive, oh, you sing as you plunder and dream of sweet dead Molly Malone, until a voice cracked with age joins your young light tones, a woman with a sun-wrinkled face, and eyes sunken and shiny, matched with a scum-filled mouth. A floppy hat squats on her head, as shapeless as the old woman squatting on the beach, in front of her boiling pot. They'll scream when they're done, she says, as she has said every day before, and takes out her hat pin and stabs at the periwinkles stewing in her pot on her witch's tripod. You give to her from your apron of bounty, and she gives to you from her pot. Both of you feast, the old and the young. One day you sang a duet by yourself, charmed us again with your solo monster mash, just before a blue moon, and told us of periwinkles, beaches and hatpins, old women who reminded some of ancient potato dolls. Maybe you're older now than that crone on the beach, but to us you still charm with that elegant ease of the barefoot girl with curls down her back. Her voice is light with songs, joy in her steps, your smile enchants, as does the tilt of your nose. And the world sits with its treasures laid out for your cunning innocence, to pick up in your apron like you have every day, singing alive, alive, oh.
I like that. It was really nice.
She actually sang the whole Monster Mash all by herself. And that was this Halloween when there was actually a blue moon. So,
Cool.
yeah. And we were leaving, and she told us this whole story about her Welsh grandmother and picking things on the beach. We were leaving after ukulele class, and I said, I'm gonna so write a poem after that. You've so earned one. And she looked at me and she was like, And then I sent her the poem privately, and she was like, I love it. I love it so much. And every time she hears it or sees it, she's like, thank you. Thank you. That one makes me happy. The next one is less happy. But I think it's probably one everyone can or has identified with. Just find it here. And it goes in the other one, the camellia one. I don't know why. There's something about living in the Okanagan, though, that has really made me be inspired by the people here. I've written a lot of poems that is just the name of the person and then a poem. It's kind of been interesting. Never really done that before.
I've never been to the Okanagan. I've probably been through it. I've never been there and hung out. So.
Oh, really?
But I have an uncle that lived there for a while. And
That's the way I've been with the island. I've been through it, on vacation and stuff, but I've never got to spend a long time there.
Yeah. I came out here because my parents had relocated out here after my dad retired, and I moved out here after I got rid of a husband and was looking for new horizons, and I just love it. I think the people are wonderful here too. We could say it's a BC thing. We could.
Yeah, we could. So this one is about growing up with someone who's abusive. It's something, you can tell me what you think after and see what our viewers think about it. It's called The Man in the Corner. Your eyes go from soft with love to hard with cunning, telling me the story of the man in the corner. He lives in your head and has your self-interests in mind over your love and compassion, and all the story of our friendship or any other connection you will ever or have ever had. He is the man in the corner. He lives in your head, and whenever I see him shift in your eyes, I know you will betray me in the next heartbeat. This betrayal is as old as he is, the man in the corner. And when he comes out, we are sudden adversaries. He is greedy and fat and old, and your love for me means nothing to the man in the corner. He is the ace of spades, and he lives up your sleeve. I see that hard cunning. Even your texts give you away. It's not you I'm talking to. It's your man in the corner. And I remember he lives there, even when we have our happiest times together, I still love you, but I know you love him more.
Wow. It's that's intense.
Yeah, the poems, I always say when I write poems that it gets it out of my head and onto the page, and I very much, I feel that, like, they're the cheapest and best therapy that anyone can have.
Oh, I agree. I find I write poetry when I'm too upset to do anything else. It'll be poetry that comes first.
I write them when I'm very happy too.
Oh yeah, I write them when I'm head over heels in love too. It's just it's an emotional thing. But yes, yeah. So
my mom died when she was quite young. But the last thing that she said to me, she wrote a card, and she said that she was so happy that I could write when I was happy as well as sad, because she could only ever write when she was sad.
So she wrote to your mother? Yes.
She wrote, and she could write some poems, but mostly in her diaries. And she wrote some very interesting things. I only ever read them after she was gone. But I really wish she would have shared them in life, because I understood her so much better. Like, it's communication, right?
Yeah.
And she was always so opaque to me, but after reading her diaries, I was like, wow, there's so much going on. And I don't know, the rest of my family really slammed her for what she wrote, and it's like, okay, she said some bad things about you. She said some bad things about everyone, but look at where she's writing from. It's a pit of darkness, like,
right.
Like, wow. And it just meant so much to me. I was like,
yeah, it's important that she shared that with you.
Yeah.
In the end, you saw it. Yeah, she was, I guess, talking. When you write into a journal, you're more really talking to yourself or your higher self, right? And I've inherited my father's mother's diary, my mother's notes that she had a stroke and she was practicing writing with the other hand.
Oh.
Because she was right-handed and had a stroke and lost use of her right hand. So she was learning to write with her left and learning to paint with her left and so on. And she would just copy out of books she was reading to practice the handwriting. But in amongst then she'd make little comments and said it was quite actually entertaining what she was thinking when she was reading this stuff. And my dad had a journal, and my mom had some notes too, and they've all passed away, and I never saw their stuff until after they passed. And it's the same. Especially my mother, she's kept her cards close to her chest about pretty much everything. And after she passed, I read some things that she thought, and I understand her a whole lot better. And I wish that she had those conversations with me. Absolutely.
I was talking to, it was actually my RMT, my massage therapist, and I was telling her a bit about that with my mother, and we were both really lamenting the lack of communication in families, because there's so much that goes unsaid, and it's, I don't know, I just think that it needs to be said, I don't know, I'm a big believer in talking things out. I'm a talker, though.
Yeah, I've learned to be that way, but I'm more so with my children than with my parents. I didn't have these, although my dad I did. I had long conversations about life and philosophies, and that kind of thing. With my mom, it was very limited in instructions mostly, things like
But
that.
you became that for your kids. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
so important,
But I
you know.
encourage them to write too, because you have to be able to have that space where you can say whatever you need to say, and nobody has to have a judgment on it. It's between you and yourself. You need to have journals and things like that. I think it's important. And then those of us who are brave enough to publish those things, they're good fodder for some pretty dark stories, I have to say. My first novel was based on journals I had when I was a battered wife, and there's some stuff there, and you talk about writing stuff and then forgetting about it. I went back and looked through those journals, diaries they were, and I thought, who is this person? What the hell was going through your head? Why would you put up with that stuff? And you don't realize that what your headspace was like. You don't remember, and you go back and look at it and think, holy crap. So those dark pages of your mother's is probably moments like that later on didn't mean the same thing, you know?
Well, it's interesting because like for me, like I come from generational abuse. So the poetry from the Camellia book, it's my poetry, but it's also poetry about my mother. My mother, like, she got married when she was 15, and
Wow.
she was pregnant. Gets kind of dark here. I don't know if this is PG-13, but she was pregnant as a result from her father.
Wow.
And she was escaping. And my dad was 18, and he got arrested because my mom was pregnant and 15. And he used her diaries to get out of jail, because they talked about what had happened with her and her dad, but nothing happened to her dad.
But he got out of jail at the very least, anyways.
Yeah, got my dad out of jail. But I mean, my dad was very abusive. And, you know, he used gaslighting things. He did all sorts of things. And this has been something that, like I say, I can tell my childhood, as though it was the most wonderful story ever, with a dad who bought me ponies and built me a canopy bed and bought me a horse and always did these amazing things for me and was always the hero of the story. Or I can tell it as a horror story.
Right. I think it's important, though, for those of us who have experienced abuse to make those, just to write those stories and write those poems and tell our stories, because then it gives people who read that the understanding that they're not alone, and that that it is something that happens to other people as well. It's not something you did. It's something that was done to you, and you can rise above it. You can deal. You can survive, and
yeah. And
I think it's important for us to be survivors and to say that.
It is. And like for me, I didn't think that anyone else went through what I went through. Like for me, it was, I mean, I didn't really think about it. It was so much a matter of day-to-day survival. It was so much a matter of, like, I always had broken bones growing up. Like, my collarbone was always broken, at least once a year. And I had other broken bones as well, but my collarbone was horribly mangled and broken. I had to have like bone grafts and stuff when I was 12, I think it was. And this collarbone is actually 1.5 inches shorter than this collarbone.
Wow.
And at one point I talked to a friend of the family and I said, didn't you ever think it was weird that I always had broken bones? And they said, I never thought of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, eh? People see what they want to see, right? And they don't want to.
Yeah.
They don't want to know that stuff's not happy. Okay, I'm looking at. I'm going to interrupt you to say I'm looking at
Sure.
my chat, and someone has sent a poem to hyperlinks for me to read. So I'll read that
Sure.
in a bit.
It's in Discord. It's massive.
Oh, it's in Discord and it's massive. Okay.
Oh,
All right. We'll get to that shortly. Maybe take a break first, hey? So I'm going to read this poem. I'm not sure who sent it. But it's on topic with what we were talking about before I may take the break. And it's not too bad for length. So, whoever sent this through chat, I did see the name back there. It was, hang on. The name was in the chat, but now I can't roll. Oh, there it goes. Cherished. Shikeko? Anyways, I'm going to call you Cherish. So this is from Cherish. And I do this with my viewers. I encourage people to write, and if they're brave enough to let me read it, that's cool. If they want to come on and read it, that's even cooler. But I will read it for them if they want. But the main thing is that, write.
definitely.
Okay? Yeah. So this one's called Depression. Depression is a monster that destroys both heart and soul. It tortures without mercy and consumes its victims whole. It cripples and disables, making life too hard to cope. It can make each day a nightmare and leave a person without hope. Some people feel this sadness from the time that they are young and believe that they are different and can't be loved by anyone. It's reinforced by parents too depressed themselves to care for that child they're supposed to love, but instead forget is there. Depression can be nurtured through violence and neglect, and fists used only to degrade, and words used to reject. It's hidden in those bullies who torture and demean, who use their words like weapons to destroy all self-esteem. It's fueled by those substances that are used to help escape from that endless pain depression brings and that unbearable heartache. It can cause someone to just give up, to lose all strength to fight. It can alienate one's very soul and make them take their life. Yes, depression is a vulture that will make anyone its prey. There is no one who deserves it, and there is no one to blame. We don't need to make a judgment, but we need to be aware that those who suffer through this pain just need the world to care. That's beautiful.
It is.
That is absolutely beautiful, Cherish. Thank you so much for sharing that.
My mom had depression, and she, like I said, she died at an early age. My older brother had depression too, and it was very difficult to deal with. My mom wouldn't notice me at all, and I didn't understand why. Like, my dad really diminished the whole concept of depression. So it made it very difficult, because any bridge that could have been made between us, my dad really just made it so that, my mom was just stupid, essentially. She was just lazy. And I couldn't understand why she literally didn't see me or hear me, and it was only when I got her diaries and I grew up, because I mean, I was a stupid kid. I didn't understand. And when I got to be a teenager, I would literally yell at her to try to get her attention.
Yeah, I had a similar upbringing. My parents, my mother just passed away this year, and
I'm so sorry.
my father last year. So
Oh,
they were in their 80s, and Dad had Parkinson's, and so I was their power of attorney and running around paying bills and carrying on. And man, my mother was rough on me and rough on him, and I didn't really understand ever in my life what the hell I did that merited half. But anyway, wasn't until after she passed that I realized that for sure the last year was the closest we'd ever been, and I think losing my dad, she figured out that well, there wasn't that fight for attention. I think she was always jealous of, because I was the first born at the end of their first year of marriage. Like, she got pregnant right away after the wedding, and I think she felt like I stole her thunder, kind of thing. And the rest of our whole relationship was kind of based on that. And because he thought the sun shone out my butt because I was his little princess, you know. And
it was exactly the same for me.
yeah, and so she had issues with that, and I didn't understand really. And then when he was gone, then the issue was no longer there. Then she could be not only my mother, but my friend she was looking for. And I'm like, what? Yeah, that was really strange times.
Yeah.
Someone says they love the content right now. Thank you. Do you enjoy?
Somebody else says they love the smell of toast.
So there's some. I love the smell of toast. Okay.
Weird people.
There are some strange comments. I'm just picking up the ones that seem pertinent to the conversation. So it's funny how then your mother was, what I'm guessing, I'm a bit older than you. So your mother was probably, oh, well, you said she passed when she was young, right?
Yeah,
But
she was in her 40s when she died.
so would she have been born in the 50s or the
I
40s?
think in the 60s.
She was born in the 60s.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I was just thinking that my mother was born in the 30s, end of the 30s, and she was an adult in the 50s, and very much a 50s woman and housewife type. And I think she felt really trapped by that, and really objected to the fact that I, born much later, was had more of options available to me. Although I'm fairly certain the glass ceiling is still there for me, but she felt like I had more options and took more risks and stuff than she was ever allowed to do, kind of thing. So there was a fair bit of jealousy there, I think. But anyways,
Yeah. I actually, I found a poem that I wrote about my mom. It was about her diaries, and some of her entries were a little hard to understand. I found some entries, and it was like, I have 3 beautiful children and a husband who loves me, which, I mean, is debatable, but, I mean, she tried to feel that way. And she was like, it's a sunny day. Why can't I be happy? And there were entries like that.
mm,
And I mean, clear entries that were her fighting depression. But there was one entry, and it was really clear that she couldn't distinguish from me as a little girl versus her as a little girl.
interesting.
And yeah, and she knew I was being abused, but she couldn't she couldn't, it was like it was paralyzing her because she related it so much to it was her.
Wow.
And it just like reverted her to a child state. So some of the answers for why she didn't help me more were kind of answered in that. And
Yeah.
this poem is based off of some of the words like that she wrote down in her diary around that. It's called Little Girl, and it's one that I plan on using for the Camellia poetry anthology. You sit in a maelstrom, perfectly still a child, and still hoping for the best while getting the worst. Your eyes closed, and you woke in a nightmare. You said a curse followed you. I believe you were right. A little girl in a blood-stained dress. You said the wolf got her, and her braids turned gray. How she haunted you, along with the broken pitcher that ruined a perfect summer day.
It's lovely. It's lovely. Should we do another giveaway?
Yes, let's do that.
Got
And then maybe find something more cheerful to read.
sounds good.
Change the tone.
All right, you guys. Exclamation point iBooks if you haven't done it already, and you want in on the draw. Somebody's got huge lag issues with their iPhone 5.
Yeah, Twitch support just threw something out there having issues.
So apparently Twitch, I don't know if you heard him, hyperlinks, but Twitch support says they're having issues with.
Nothing major, but they said
Well,
than
nothing
the usual nightly lag when there's so many people on.
more than the usual lag. Okay,
More than usual.
sounds good.
So
I
many viewers. Oop, there's a follow. 209.
Fearsome Yurt, thanks for the follow, and Off Feeding, thanks for the follow. That's about it from the chat. Excuse me. So last week on Thursday we had writers open mic as well, and I interviewed myself, and and I have on occasion read from all my anthology and like read lots of prose. So I thought I'd wax poetic and read some of my poetries, and I have a collection of poetry and stuff that's been published in magazines and like that. And then I'm working on a collection called Untethered. That's poetry I wrote after my father passed, and it's about grieving and that kind of thing. And my podcast a couple of weeks ago, I had this woman, Belle Zajic, come on, and she's a grief recovery method specialist, and she was talking about grief and that it's just any kind of big change will put you into a spin of grief, and that's not something we like to acknowledge. And she double dog dared me to read some of my poetry that I wrote after my dad passed. So I pulled it out and thought, all right, she said I just had to read it to one of my partners. I didn't have to like read it here. But I have a comfort with my listeners, and I felt that it was safe space for me. So I did that last week. I read some of it, and I thought, geez, I did have to do some editing, but I thought, it's not too bad. This would make a good book. So so I pulled it together, but I need to write some more because there's not a lot there. So I'll play around with it for a while. But I read some of it on the air in my writer's open mic last week, which has to be uploaded to YouTube yet. But it's a writer.
I'll have to watch that. I'd be very interested to hear some of that.
Yeah, some of it, I thought, well, if I can get through reading some of this, I read some stuff first that was not going to challenge my tear ducts, and then I got into that, and I thought, well, if I can read this stuff and not cry, I'm doing pretty good. And I made it through it. It was pretty good. Yeah. and it was, I thought, well received. So,
You know, it's interesting. I thought I was over the stuff that happened to me as a child until I was run over. And when that happened, I've used this metaphor a lot. It was like I was carrying a big trunk of clothes and it was smashed wide open on the pavement. And it's not just a matter of picking up all those clothes again. It's a matter of, well, that trunk's been smashed. Everything's been smashed and everything's dirty and laid all over, and I have to pick it all up. I have to fold it, and I have to find a place for it again.
yeah.
And since that accident happened, it's like I've been picking things up and looking at it and remembering all over again that I have this and that I don't even have a place to put it, and folding it up again and then putting it in another place. And it's they call it complex PTSD is what they call it. And it's when you have one event, or rather a prolonged stretch of very bad things happen to you, and then you have something else happen to you that re-stimulates it.
Yeah.
And it complicates things. It's not normal.
Yeah, Belle talked about that with grief too. She said that grief overlays. If you don't deal with the first thing, then a bunch of other things happen. It's like a monsoon, and so yeah, I can empathize absolutely. And the idea of the clothes and trying to stuff them back in the whatever, it makes me think of counseling. I always thought counseling was like that when I first went to see a counselor about family of origin stuff and all that, and you open up this big suitcase and all your shit falls out all over the place, and then they say, yeah, so time's up, and they don't even give you time to put the stuff back in the suitcase, and of course it's not going to fit because you go away on vacation, nothing ever fits back in that suitcase the way you packed it, right? And so I like that analogy of trying to put things back into a trunk that's smashed. That's a very good analogy.
And I thought, I had everything together because I had this trunk that I was carrying with me and everything was so neatly put away. But, there comes a point where you have to ask yourself, well, what am I doing with this trunk of old clothes, carrying it with me everywhere? Like,
what do I want this for? Oh, get rid of that.
Yeah. Like, what really was the point of that? And what am I doing with it now? Carrying it around and folding and refolding it. So, yeah. And there came a point, it was actually really interesting because, like, I was on a marked crosswalk when I got run over. Like, I was 100% not at fault. And not even the most idiotic ICBC adjuster has been able to say that I'm at fault for this one. But it's the sort of thing that you keep on every time I go into a therapist or a new counselor, because you have to when it's an ICBC thing.
Right.
I had never really done that before at all in my life, gone into therapy or counseling. Every single person, what was your childhood like? It's like, what does this have to do with me crossing the road?
Yeah. Interesting, eh? Yeah, I had to go through that as part of a divorce thing. My first divorce was, we need both people to go for counseling. Like, whatever. So I got somebody here telling me a bunch of stuff, so I'm going to read what they say. This is Universe Energy. It says, hey you, yes you, sitting behind your screen reading this. I don't know you and you don't know me, but I want to tell you something. Everyone has their own story. Yours might be filled with joy and happiness, or it might be clouded with pain and misfortune. I want you to know that you're a beautiful, wonderful, talented person. Even if your life isn't going the way you want it right now, I know that you'll be able to make it out all right. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to know you're a beautiful, wonderful, talented person. Even if your life, repeated, even if your life isn't going the way you want, I know that you'll be able to make it out. I want you to do me a favor. Okay, so that was repeated. Because even if you aren't the prettiest or the smartest or the funniest, you're something that no one else can be. You're you. And you are the greatest thing you can be. Smile at strangers, be confident in yourself. Cry when you feel like crying, laugh when you feel like laughing. Treat yourself like a goddess because you deserve it. Hold your head up and keep your heart open. You're worth everything and then some. And always remember that no matter what, even if it doesn't seem like it, you're everything to someone. Interesting. That was very nice. That was really nice. Thank you, Universe Energy, who now sent a heart. Aw, very nice.
Very new Twitch user. Like 5 minutes ago.
Oh, really? Someone that just joined Twitch. Good call. Good call. Alrighty, so you were gonna... Oh, we were gonna do the giveaway. We didn't do it yet.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody jumped on the iBooks thing, but no, we didn't do the giveaway. So do the drum
We're
roll.
teasing them.
We're teasing them.
I'm waiting for
So
you guys.
so do the drum roll,
Conversation.
and the giveaway is...
Good luck.
Yeah, Valet Tarsenol has won the giveaway. Valia Tarsenol. And so the giveaway that this is for is so woot, she says. Whisper to Hyperlinks 256, and he'll tell you how to claim that. So it's a free ebook, and your choice of, there's I think 25 titles there now. Lots of smut. 25 titles to choose from. And if you have any trouble, you folks that are getting these giveaways, if you have any trouble claiming them, let me know, because sometimes the website glitches out on me. And somebody says, where do you live, and do you live alone?
Don't answer that.
No?
No.
Why? It's a bot?
Yep.
Oh, it's a bot.
No, it's not, but don't answer it.
Oh. Report?
Who are they talking to?
It was what?
Who are they talking to?
I'm not sure. We've already talked about where we live. We both live, you live in the Okanagan, and I live in Victoria, on the island. And we both have partners.
Yes.
Yeah, so
He's a troll.
So
So,
we're not looking
not alone.
Yeah, we do not live alone. And I heard a dog too. You've got a dog. I heard a dog
Yes.
barking. Yeah.
Yes.
She has a partner and a dog. And they're
Yes,
both
and a budgie.
they're both and a what?
And a budgie.
And a budgie. Ha. The dog and the husband are well trained. We
I don't know about the bird yet.
we don't know about the bird.
The budgie can be loud.
The budgie can be loud. Yeah.
Yes, sometimes, but generally it's pretty good.
Yeah, well, the husband was doing laundry and the dog was told to shut up and did. So they're both well trained. I got that. The budgie, what's the budgie's name?
China.
China. I had a budgie years ago. I had 6 kids in the house, and the noise, the poor budgie just couldn't handle it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just couldn't take the noise. Yeah.
See, we're the other way. It's the budgie that can drive us crazy. But my husband did some work with Cal Tire and in the oil field. He was a medic in the oil field, so his hearing can be a little sensitive to loud, shrill noises sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, before I bought the budgie, I found out that they really like the ch sound a lot. That's one of their favorite sounds.
Oh, so
So
you
I
call them.
decided on China because it's one of their favorite sounds.
Oh, so she likes being called. Good stuff.
Yeah,
Alrighty,
China.
so we did the thing, we read the thing, so now we're back to you, and do you have something you want to read?
Yeah, I have a couple of different things I was looking at. I've got something on a totally different vein. It's a bit more of kind of a memoir. It's some voices from the valleys,
Okay.
and this was actually done. I do a lot of charity writing. I don't know how I ended up being known as a charity writer, but a lot of people come to me and ask me to do work for charity anthologies. This ended up raising tens of thousands of dollars for Doctors Without Borders.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, it
Wow.
was very cool. And speaking of husbands, my husband did some artwork for it.
Oh, yeah.
That's a Wolverine, and this is an encounter I had. So I have a wide range of writing that I do. And I think this might be, it's very different from the other one I read, so I thought I might do something different.
All right. Go for it.
And it's very short, so I can read the whole thing, which is kind of cool. It was a beautiful day for gardening. At least, it was a beautiful day in theory. In practice, what can appear to be a perfect day by Dry William Lake, just outside of Fraser Lake, BC, can in reality be an almost impossible day for gardening. It starts with the hordes of black flies that emerge from the moist soil in late April or early May. This progresses to mosquitoes that dot the air like fleets of black helicopters, and finally climaxes in wasps and hornets that build their nests quickly and wildly everywhere in a mad dash to finish before the first frost. After that, it's winter again, and there's nothing to beset you until the snow fleas freckle the leaving snow starting as early as February. When I say it was a beautiful day for gardening, what I actually mean was that it was a day when there was a bit of wind, so the black flies weren't eating me too badly, and it was too early for mosquitoes and wasps to be in attack mode yet. Also, when I say gardening, I actually mean hacking at overgrown brush to clear it enough for it to one day become a garden. I had my hair tied back and tucked up into a baseball cap. My pants were tucked into my socks to keep the creepy crawlies out, and the long sleeves of my shirt were tucked into my gloves. Somehow these areas would still be invaded by the end of the day by bits of bracken and black flies, but it was better than what would happen if I didn't take those measures. I had a set of long snips with a mouth on them like a parrot's, and I was using it to snip the little willows and poplars that spring up and grow quicker than you can cut them back before the hardness of the frost even leaves the ground. Those long snips were the first thing I thought of to use as a weapon when I met checkers. One sec. There was going to be complications to arming myself that, as I was working on taking down the brush and imagining the beautiful garden that would one day grow there, had in no way crossed my mind at that point. The complication started with 10 little goslings, who all believed me to be their mama goose. Anyone who knows goslings know that they bond fiercely with the first person they see. In the case of these 10 little babies, I was their mother. It must be a reciprocal connection because I was crazy about those little goslings. They would come out and garden with me and eat the bugs out of the air and the weeds out of the garden bed. Geese are nature's best weeders. If you teach them when they're babies to eat the weeds you want to eliminate, they naturally develop a palate for whatever you feed them most, and will avoid weeds or plants with which they are unfamiliar. 10 little goslings fluttered around me on the ground, and my puppy played guard dog to them, romping and playing around them. I sang little bits of nonsense to them and myself to amuse us as we worked. Goose girl, the boundaries between us have become decidedly loose, girl. Silly things that you say to animals and plants who will never judge you for being so silly. After working for a few hours, I set the clippers down and sat on the ground. I was instantly swarmed by the goslings, who ran under the edges of my shirt like it was a skirt of Mama Goose feathers and nuzzled into me. With goslings around me and my puppy on my lap, it was almost easy to ignore the insects that swarmed to me nearly as quickly as the goslings had when I stopped moving and became an easy target. It was in this pleasant moment, when the forest was quiet except for the peepings of the baby birds, that I noticed that it was altogether too quiet. Then I heard it, a heart-stopping sound when you're in the wild, something big moving through the brush. It sounded huge. Whatever it was moving without any thought of being careful or quiet. It was completely unafraid, and it was headed right for me and my little family. My first thought was that it was a bear or a moose. It was just so loud. I tucked my puppy under one arm, and the goslings, roused from their nap, headed off in all directions looking for more tasty weeds. My heart was pounding in my ears, and my adrenaline was surging. How could I round up all 10 of them before whatever was running at us made an appearance? Rule 1 when being in the bush, don't ever be too quiet. Chances are that wild animals will try to avoid you. If you accidentally surprise them, as I was about to surprise the beast I would come to call Checkers, they will all act like a wild animal and do whatever they think is necessary to protect themselves. Hey, I called out, whatever you are, I'm not sure you noticed, but there's a bunch of us over here. You might want to take another path. I was saying whatever came to mind, talking to the beast just talking so that the beast would hear us and hopefully run away. The bunch of us was a bunch of baby goslings and a puppy. I looked around for my shears, big metal tool I could use as a weapon in a pinch. What on earth sort of animal was I dealing with? I tried to remember the various rules for if it was a moose or a bear. Should I play dead? Run? Not run? What were the rules? And how could I get my awkward, slow-moving goslings to safety? But even a short distance was much too far for us. The beast in the bushes paused. I could hear him listening. I piled a couple of the goslings on top of my puppy, who was squirming. All the baby animals were completely unaware of the possible danger. The animal was upwind from me, and I got a whiff of something nasty. It was a carnivore, that was for sure. It had a musky stink to it that made me tremble from the adrenaline pumping through my veins. Hey, Drew, I called one of the goslings who was fighting with one of his sisters. Do you hear that racket? Maybe we should go inside? I couldn't even see you with the snips. The loud noise of the big animal approaching came closer. It was more cautious than it had been, so that was good. It knew we were here now. So, however this was going to go down, we had at least removed the aspect of surprise from the equation. I finally spotted the aluminum snips about 20 feet away in the opposite direction from our safe retreat in the barn. They were too far away, so I abandoned the idea of grabbing them and instead shooed the goslings toward the house. I kept up a dialogue, the goslings chatting back to me happily in their language of peeps and squeaks that would one day become formidable honks. Assuming I could keep them all alive enough to get their pin feathers. I was worried at the moment that we were all about to become some predator's lunch. From the musky odor, I was pretty sure it would be a bear, or perhaps a cougar that emerged from the bush. Imagine my surprise when an animal with a smooth black head emerged from the undergrowth. My first thought was that he was one of the black otters that lived in the lake that had, for some reason, come all the way up the hill, away from the water to explore. Oh, hello, I said in surprise. The goslings had become suddenly aware of the danger and ran behind me with alarmed cries. I looked down at the animal, both of us frozen in place, inspecting the other, and equally unsure of what our next move would be. He didn't seem nearly large enough to have made such a racket coming up the hill. I looked down at his paws and realized that whatever he wasn't an otter. He had large, formidable claws that were easily 4 inches long. They were stuck like razors coming out of his hands, like that superhero, like the Wolverine. I realized that must be what this animal was. I looked back up and met his gaze, and his mouth opened in a snarl. His teeth looked like they were too big for him to ever close his mouth around them. Thick strands of saliva clung to his open mouth and then dripped down his chest. "We were just going," I said incoherently. I spotted a branched stick and picked it up. Acting entirely on instinct, I held it over my head like antlers and took a sliding step to the side and away from the Wolverine. It quit snarling and cocked its head. "Yeah," I said, trying to think of words to say and continuing my shuffling sidestepping. Rule number 2, don't run away. Don't act like prey. I don't know what I was acting like. I don't remember what else I said to that Wolverine, but I kept up a steady talkative stream while he watched me. With every shuffle step, my little flock of geese ran behind me. I must have looked like the strangest and possibly craziest animal in the forest with my faux antler on my head and my puppy and 2 geese in my arms and 8 more scurrying behind me. Whatever I was acting like, the Wolverine must have decided that I was pretty funny. It sat down on its haunches and scratched the side of its face with one of its terrifying paws. Its head cocked and its mouth closed, almost like a funny-looking dog watching us. It was no dog, though. It was a wild animal, and I could see the calculating intelligence in its gaze as it watched my bizarre pantomime. After a moment of this, I truly swear that it smiled. It smiled at me like a nearly human smile. Then it stood up, and faster than I could imagine, turned and galloped away from me and my little family. I watched the Wolverine run off. I dropped the stick, took off my shirt and gathered up the goslings, and ran them back to the barn and barricaded them in. I was in a panic at first. What if the animal came back for us? How could I guard him and never feel safe again? It was that night that it hit me. Why should I feel threatened? Sure, he had come, but he had also been respectful, and he hadn't hurt so much as a piece of down on one of the goslings' heads. The next day I walked around my property, looking for telltale signs of wolverines. They like to make perches on bowers and bent over trees where they watch for prey. They will fall on someone like death from above before you know what's happening. They spend their time sharpening their teeth and claws, so their perches are easy to see if you look for the white exposed flesh that their claws leave on their lofty lookout points. I found a lot of them. Some of them were older and some of them were quite recent. The reality is that when you live in a place like British Columbia, you are living in wild beauty. And part of that beauty is the danger of the wild. That Wolverine had been there for a long time, and he had chosen to do me and mine no harm. Wolverines travel through a wide area hunting, patrolling, and marking. It was a while before I saw the Wolverine, and by that time I had dubbed him Checkers, as an ironic and perhaps panic-induced nod to Nixon's spaniel. I saw him just as he was leaving. He had left something on the grass on the farthest edge of my land. He took off away from my land and walked down the hill to the little brown bundle. And I walked down the hill to the little brown bundle he had left on the side of the road. It was half of a tawny brown rabbit. I looked at it and then turned towards the tree line where Checkers had vanished. "Thank you," I called after him. I picked up the rabbit half with a bit of Kleenex in my pocket. I had no idea how I was going to dispose of it, but the last thing I needed was for a watching Wolverine to see me spurn his gift. The perches where Checkers had watched for prey became weathered with age over the seasons. He did not return to mark them again. I never found another Wolverine perch on my property ever. Every 2 or 3 months, however, I would find part of a rabbit or maybe a dead bird, something unidentifiable, left in the same spot at the border where my land met at the road. It was an exact line from where our confrontation had occurred. That's the difference between people from British Columbia and people in the rest of the world. Other people have cats bring them presents, and in BC, we have wolverines do the same thing.
That was good. I liked it. What an experience. I wouldn't have known a wolverine either. So.
Well, it was summer, so I've seen pictures of them and they're all bushy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know. He looked just like an otter or a seal at first.
And his summer coat, yeah, a little bit thinner.
He was so loud.
You wanted to make sure you knew he was there, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. But,
Surprised he didn't go after the goslings.
I know. I really didn't know what he'd do in the future because, I mean, I was like imagining like, oh, I'm going to have to bury metal. I'm going to have to like do all these things to keep the goslings safe. And he never came back on the land. I don't know what passed between us, but it was some sort of respect.
Or he just thought you were too crazy to tangle with. with your antlers.
Like, wow. He is crazy, man. I think that he thought it was funny. I do. I could have sworn he laughed. And
so, what book is that from? That story?
That's from Voices from the Valley. I think you can still find it on Amazon.
Voices from the Valley. Okay.
Yeah. And it's compiled and edited by Jody Renner. Cobalt Books.
Awesome.
That's his name.
That's great. Okay, I'm just looking back through the chat. Thanks for the follows. Accredited Tunder and Marigest. And what's going on? I love watching you. Thank you very much. And Hugh. Okay, so that was very funny. I quite like that.
Yeah, it was. I really came to have a soft spot for Checkers, and it was so funny because he always left his presents in the same spot, and I never knew what to do with them, but it was so respectful. And I'd hear my neighbors, they'd complain about the wolverine all the time, and I actually kind of got concerned that someone would shoot him, and I had this weird like relationship with him. I rarely saw him or anything like that, but I worried about him, and it was, I don't know, maybe it's a bit of Stockholm syndrome because really he just terrorized me the one time, and other than that we didn't have anything. Maybe
we had I live in a townhouse complex, but it's right on the edge of a bird estuary. And we have raccoons, and they wreak havoc, really. They like to get into garbage and whatever they can do, right? Go after the geese. There's lots of geese here, and they go after the geese eggs all the time. But we had one that was, we have like a security cam out front. So figured out that that's what this was. But anyways, a little baby raccoon would go through the recycling to see if there's anything tasty in there and leave us presents too. But they were little tiny balls of poop. He would leave them up beside the bird feeder. It's like, are you trying to tell me something? You want me to leave you food? And so,
bird feeder or something?
So what?
Yeah.
But anyways,
raccoons are really bold. Like they're.
Yeah, they can have a temper too. You don't really want to tangle with one.
No.
No, but this little guy was, and you can see on the webcam, he'd come up and kind of look around and be a little just disturbed. We didn't leave him any tasty things, and leave his little poop bundle and then take off. And we moved the bird we moved the bird. We put out suet for the birds, and I think he was trying to sample it, but it's in a metal cage thing so that squirrels and that can't get at it. So I guess he wasn't able to get much of a nibble. Then I moved it over so that he would have to do some climbing to get at it, and then we saw him come look and think about it, and then we didn't see him again for a while after that.
I'm really convinced that people underestimate how smart animals are.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I agree too.
Like in that same piece of land, we had a crow, and he talked. I don't know who taught the crows there to talk, but they talked. They didn't say much. They said hello, and it was in a Cockney accent. And when we first went there, we lived in a tent because it was like a raw piece of land when we first moved there. And I woke up out of this nightmare. I was having this horrible dream that I was like getting killed. And there was this other woman being killed, and she was screaming for my life, for my life. And then I woke up and someone was screaming for my life, for my life. And there was a crow outside screaming this.
Good heavens.
And you could see the crow outline, and it's out there up, and normally they're like but it was for my life, for my life, for my life.
Wow.
That's all they could say. But for a while, like this hello, I thought someone was like teasing me, or
Yeah.
But then it was like someone's teasing me from a really tall tree. And so we started leaving food out for them, and we'd call hello back, and they were quite friendly.
We used to have a dog, and he'd be out the back on the patio, and the squirrels from the trees would be throwing acorns at or pine cones at him. So he'd bark, right? And so we haven't had that dog we gave him away to somebody who has a farm. There's a student, not enough room around here for him. And my son was out there the other day, and the squirrels were throwing pine cones at his head. And he's out there like, silly squirrels are bored.
Probably my friend looking for his nuts.
It might
a lot of
be.
People in Vancouver say, like, if you make an enemy of one crow in Vancouver, they will tell all the other crows.
Yep.
And you can't go anywhere in the Lower Mainland because the crows will harass you.
I believe it.
Like, well, don't make an enemy out of the crows.
Don't make an enemy out of the crow then. Yeah, be careful.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
Karma, man.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a place here in Victoria called Clover Point. And you go and the point is you park in like a horseshoe, right? And you can watch the water and the ships come in and that kind of stuff. It's quite windy. A lot of people in the center of the horseshoe is grass, and you can go there and fly kites. A lot of people fly kites there. It's very windy. But there's a ton of birds that hang out there, and they figure people are going to, like seagulls, figuring people are going to drop things, and there's little herds of, I don't know if they're quails or what they are, but they're just like in little herds, and you come out and they're like, oh, there's people here, and they just surround you. It's quite creepy.
Yeah, seagulls can be aggressive. The
guy that walks
they
on
can
birds all on him.
Stephen King writes a lot about seagulls being creepy, and
what were you saying, hyperlinks?
Remember the guy that walked around? The birds would all just literally sit on him.
Oh yeah, they're like, he had seed, and so they
literally walk around on his shoulder.
Yep, and they'd know, and they'd just hop on him and he'd feed them, and yeah, they got to know him. But yes, what were you saying about Stephen King?
Stephen King's written quite a bit about seagulls being like eerie or creepy in different ways, and I think that's an interesting concept. I mean, I don't know, Stephen King gets creeped out by crows a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Stephen King a lot, but
yeah, me too. He thinks everybody's evil and has ulterior motives for everything.
Yeah, like he gets creeped out by crows, and
Yeah.
I think he's a little bit too nervous.
I just wonder what his dreams are like.
Yeah, I think had quite a few. I think he takes a lot of his stories from dreams.
Possibly, yeah.
But I
Alrighty.
actually turned the one story about the crow. That was the For My Life one. I turned that one into a story.
You kind of have to when it's weird like that. It helps you work through
Yeah,
it. So this weirded me out. I'm gonna weird you out too. Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty intense. I had it be a woman who was being abused by her husband, and she left the house and joined the crows.
Oh.
Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
something to that effect. I ended up going in several directions with it, though. My beta readers had like all these different ideas for it, so I ended up like going and writing like I think it turned into like 5 different short stories in the end, ultimately, because everyone had these different ideas about it. And I have a rule that if I submit something 3 times and it doesn't get accepted, I turn it into my most brutal beta readers. I'm like, what am I not communicating here?
That's a good idea. Beta readers are great.
They are, especially if you can find ones you trust and work well with.
Absolutely. So you were saying this was a charity thing. The anthologies that we've done have been for charities, and
Yeah.
I think that's an awesome thing because it raises money for the charity, and it gives broad readership to some fairly unknown authors. It's a good start for them, and then the families of the authors buy it, which supports the charity. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a sort of a win-win deal.
It is. I did, and I'm often surprised by who I'm contacted by and where it comes from. I did an interview, and it was a cool interview. I love the concept, and I've kind of utilized it on my own for writing conventions and stuff. But it was to do an interview as my character,
Oh,
and it was the character from Dalton's Daughter, which was kind of funny because people always accuse me of her being me, but it's one that isn't. But it's, yeah, one of those ones. So I did this interview, and then I was contacted, and it's a press called Writer Punk Press. And they said, we loved your interview, and we read some of your writing afterwards. And would you write with us? But we do for charity. It was Pause for a Cause that
mm-hmm.
they do things for. And it turned into a long-standing relationship. I actually write for them quite a bit. So they do a lot of steampunk stuff.
Right.
And but it's a great press to work with. They're like just an awesome group of people, and some of the anthologies I've done with them have gotten various awards and stuff. One anthology got like 3 awards, got like People's Choice, and it's called a BOFA award, and another award I can't remember, but it was impressive. It's like, wow, cool.
That is very good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I have a bit of a rule, and I mean, it's one of those rules that as a girl it doesn't sound the best to say, but I try to never say no.
Yeah,
And
me too.
I like to I like to do new things. I like to work with new people and new processes. It's really fun.
Yeah, I'm always up for some interesting angle to things,
Yeah.
something new. Yeah.
even like, like when you were like, do you want to do this interview? And it's like, yeah, sure, why not? And it's like, yeah, and I know you, and then it's a good way to get to know someone better, and it's a good way to just, I don't know.
I think we live in a world too that if as authors we need to be where the people are, because we can't do the in real life meetings and the conventions and the places where we would normally go to find our readers. We need to be where they are, and they're on Twitch and they're on YouTube, and they're looking for connections. And so to buy your book, they need to make that connection and go, that was a funny story, I got to buy that book. Or she sounds, her stuff is really nice, I want to read more of her stuff, I'll go buy her stuff. But they would have to make that connection with you. And this is a way to do it. We have to look for those new ways to do things now.
Like this whole idea that, how authors are always saying, or artists or whatever, they're like, oh yeah, do it for exposure, you'll die of exposure. I don't believe that at all. Like,
yeah, there's not a lot of writers who are multimillionaires in this country. You're not going to be a multimillionaire. Do it because it feels good to do it, and do it so you make that connection with your readership.
I had someone contact me on my author page, and they were like, you're a writer, and that's great, but when I get home, I'm too tired to write. And it's like, okay, for me, I need to write. Like, if you're a writer, it's probably an addiction. Like, I don't really know how to express this. Like, I can encourage you to write. It's great therapy. It's all these things. But like, I can't not write. I was a barista at Starbucks, and I got really good at it and stuff. And I was writing stuff on napkins while I was making lattes, and on my hand. I'd get home and I'd have stuff like all up my arm. And like,
yeah, I like the notes section on my phone for that exact reason.
Me too. I love it. It's great. I have like thousands of notes. A lot of them are poems. It's a great place for poems.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, and if someone wants me to write a theme story or even a poem, like I was asked to write a poem for Take Back the Night.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I did it. Like, I didn't get any pay for it. I just did it. And it ended up being televised. And then the TV guy, I don't know what he was exactly, but he asked me like these really inappropriate questions afterwards. It was not cool. But I dealt with it. Like, it's really not appropriate afterwards to say, like, so did you have abuse? What exact sort of abuse did you have? And all these other things. Yeah, like, in my face, like, actually saying, like, what sort of sex abuse did you have? Who did this to you? Like, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
On TV.
I've been a spokesman for a advocacy association for years. One of the first things I learned was how to take an interview and say, well, what I think what you really meant to ask me was this, and shut people down when they ask inappropriate stuff, because I
could probably stand to take that course. I was just like, yes.
And
it's pretty clear on that point, but
yeah, and there's always I don't choose to talk about that right now. What else would you like to ask me? Yeah, you have to, because people will do that. There's some people that just really don't have boundaries at all.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even expect to be on TV, so
Oh, there's a lawsuit waiting to happen. You need to ask for permissions before you do stuff, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it turned out that my dad was actually, he drove up in a car right behind me while I was reading the poem.
Your dad
While I'm
did.
talking about safety.
Oh,
And
lovely.
yeah, and the people who were supposed to be protecting me didn't notice. Only my husband noticed.
Lovely. Oh, I'm sorry that happened for you. Hopefully this
Yeah.
interview was a bit, it's not really, we're chatting, but hopefully this interview wasn't as traumatic for you. I
Oh no,
appreciate
I'm
your,
pretty.
I appreciate
No, I'm pretty good about
your
like that.
vulnerability. It was wonderful for you to share.
Yeah.
Um,
But it was a good, like, I'm still glad I did it. I was really glad to do the Take Back the Night march. I think it's a really good march for people to do. Like, you know, you look at what happened with the lady in England, and, you know, like she was walking home and she didn't get home.
yeah.
The poem that I wrote for the Take Back the Night rally was about how easy it is to let ourselves get caged in by fear, and how important it is to let ourselves enjoy life even though these bad things happen to us. And if you go to my author page on Facebook, I have a video recording of me reading the poem. It was fairly close after the accident, so I'm all hobbled up. But yeah, I think you can actually see my dad in a car pulled up behind me too in the video. But
Lovely.
yeah, but
But
yeah, and
the stuff like
it's a good
the
poem.
woman in England that you're talking about, people that go missing, um, they're just the tip of the iceberg. Like I don't know a woman that hasn't had an experience where they've been afraid because of someone else's behavior or
Yeah,
intensity. If nothing actually ended up bad happening, just the intensity and the making them feel uncomfortable is a pretty common occurrence for most women.
that's exactly what my poem is about. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But it's
Yidu snooze sawa, whatever. Thanks for the follow.
I found it. Would you like me to read it?
Absolutely.
The poem is called It. It's not worth the risk, she said, pushing a ringlet curl behind an ear with her small hand. It's not worth it, she remarked, snubbing out her cigarette on her steel-toed boot, eyeing up the man, walking in a pool of light, half a block away from her down the street. He notices her and walks the other way. It's not worth it, she said, her eyes red from crying, her voice now mute of all emotion as it cracks from effort of speaking when they ask if she'll press charges. The smell of antiseptic soaking into her skin from a hospital gown, but not masking the stink of his whiskey breath caught in her black hair, or the bruise of his hands, night blooming on her biceps. She's seen it before. Most of us know it, how much it is worth. It's just not worth it. The stigma of the victim. So we say as little as we can, and we avoid the shadows more and more. Each time we don't speak, each time we avoid, the shadows grow a little longer. Our prisons of light a bit more cramped, but it's just not worth it. It, adrenaline pumping, escape, muscles straining, skin breaking, bruising, hoping for survival, nightmare waking, quaking, it, just not worth it. Fear of fear anticipating, our gazes breaking, eyes quickly darting, our gender the crime we're committing, making us act with guilt and meeting, men in the dusk are gloaming, How dare we leave our cage to go roaming? It's just not worth it, she said and closed the door. She latched the windows and waited to have her shower until the boys listening to music went further down the road, their laughter shaking her to the core. She had heard laughter like that and had not escaped from it once before. Once before. We learn too quickly. Nothing nature or humanity offers comes without a risk. This is it. Mortal hearts beating, each of us animals. Under the conveniences we've been given, we are not prey to our own species. That is the power we must cede. It is worth it to recall that we are fierce animals, only as mortal as those we fear. Our scurrying, timorous responses are cues that we are feeling what we have been told. Our gender makes us criminal and weak. We have no rights to walk these streets. Every man who sees us has some right to think us as anything but members of the same species. I am a tiger. I smile and meet the gaze of those I meet. I fear no one. I am fierce. I prowl without fear. If I meet a challenge, I roar a call. And my fellow lions come to my aid. We rule the jungle. The hyenas fear our roar. I walk in darkness and in light. I will show my teeth in friendliness and a sign that I could bite. I am fierce. I prowl. I roar. I call, and I answer the call of those in need. It is worth it. Nothing is safe. Nothing is without risk. Nothing is worth the fear of being kept in a cage of our own making, locked up by invisible locks, more insidious than any made of iron. It is worth it. These streets belong to us all. Take back the night.
That was awesome. Lots of interesting imagery there. I like it. Alrighty, what else did I had? One more thing I wanted to ask you about. Oh, the COVID stuff. So you took a journal, 2020, a journal of a plague year, and then decided to make a sequel, 2021, a journal of a world in chaos. So that pretty much describes the last 2 years for sure. So
Yeah.
I read something on the blog about you got off a plane, and then they shut down all the airports, and you were wondering if you were going to have to go into COVID quarantine because it was so close to them deciding to shut down air travel.
Yeah, it was pretty scary. When I took the flight, it was in March. It was, I think, the second week of March. And there were families that were going to Mexico, like whole families, little kids and stuff like that. And even at that time, I was wondering, is that smart? Is that wise? And no one was wearing masks. They hadn't declared a pandemic. I had to go. It was a medical trip. And I only spent, I think it was 3 days. I was traveling up north in the province, and then I came back. And by the time I came back, the airline both times, I was like, thank you so much for trusting us in this time of uncertainty. No one was wearing masks. No one was sanitizing. No one was doing anything that we consider completely normal now. But everybody was coughing on the plane. And by the time I got back, they were starting to really consider things seriously. By St. Patrick's Day, they were starting to close things down. So it was about, I think it was about a full week after I got back that they had started to contract people who had been on planes that were in the same airport that I had been in.
Oh dear.
And it was flight number after flight number that were being contact traced from someone having COVID on the different planes. And so I was sitting there watching this on the news, and they were like, you know, these flights. And I'm sitting there looking, and I took like 3 different planes coming back. So it was really frightening. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking like, wow, that one airport, I spent, 2.5 hours wandering around in it between flights. Like, what are the chances that I bumped into one of these people? How exactly are they contact tracing? Like,
They're just going based on the flight records. Like there could
exactly.
be
And
somebody else in the actual airport that
yeah, and
wouldn't have been
I had gone
recorded.
for
Yeah.
coffee. I went to the bookstore. I went and I wandered around. No one was, I mean, everyone was still shaking hands at that point. Everybody was still touching everything. And yeah, like nobody thought twice. Like, I mean, it was a different world then. And it was late March when I read Daniel Defoe's The Journal of a Plague Year. And it was really interesting because I was sitting there and I was thinking, you know, what if he had written it when the plague actually happened and he didn't know how it was going to turn out? Because a lot of what he wrote he took from his uncle's notes, and I think he was only about 10. I remember reading that somewhere. And like when the plague actually happened, and what if you jumped into this not knowing how it was going to end, or if you yourself is even going to survive it? And I did it not really knowing how scary it was going to actually be, because it was actually really terrifying. And there were, you know, then there were riots breaking out and all these political things happening, and it turned into something that was truly frightening. And every time I turned on the news, everything was worse. And then at one point I was like, if I release this, like, it's going to be so contentious, just my private thoughts about the politics and stuff that are going on. And then after that, I thought, well, who cares? But yeah, it's interesting because Daniel Defoe didn't have to deal with anything like that. You know, like he wrote about London burning later on, but nothing like that. So yeah, it's been a trip, and 2021 is not a lot easier to write about.
No, but you're right about that perspective. If he wrote about it after the fact based on notes of somebody else, but he probably had still memories, he would know that how it ended. Whereas as you're writing it, you have no idea how this is going to end and how crazy things are going to get even still. Yeah.
And I was really struck by how detached Daniel Defoe was in his Journal of a Plague Year. You know, it's like, here are the notes for, like, you know, in this year the parish had this many deaths, but now we have this many more deaths. So we can ascertain by this that people are dying. And, you know, but it's detached, it's removed. It's not
while he was experiencing it, because he was 10 when this was going on.
exactly.
You'd think his memories would be, but you know, maybe he black it out, right?
Yeah.
And so he's
I think part of it's wanting to be a bit removed from it.
yeah, possibly.
I mean, the plague, I mean, it's something that could have returned at any time. So do you really want to write about it like you're afraid at that point?
Yeah, and I don't know, how much emotion do we put into things when we're super terrified? Sometimes we do just state the facts. Interesting.
I tend to put a lot of emotion into things when I'm really
Yeah,
terrified.
yeah, but you're a writer, and you know how
So
to
is Daniel Defoe.
you know how to do that. I'm just saying he maybe you know I've worked security, and you interview the witnesses, and you take down their information, and the same three people will have seen the same thing, and they will describe it three different ways. And some people are more. It's all about how kind of a learner you are. Some people are more visual, and some people are more audio, and some people are more tactile. So perhaps people who are tactile would describe things more, more. This is what happened. Here's the deal. Blah blah blah. And other people who are more visual would say, "Oh, and I saw piles of bodies everywhere," and there would be more emotion to it, right? And so it might be just what kind of a mind he had, that it was more, let's state the facts. I'm a newspaper reporter type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like, there is always this threat of it turning into like a full blown, like, is this going to be like The Stand sort of thing? That
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
in America, like they're showing pictures of the reefer trucks that they're putting the bodies in,
Oh wow.
and in Italy, and like there's mass graves in Brazil and Italy and New York.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw the mass graves in New York. That was freaky. That took me back to Second World War. Like, holy cow.
Yeah,
And videos I saw in school about um, Auschwitz and things like that. I was like, holy cow, where are we with this?
yeah, and like I did the ghost tour. Like I was a ghost tour guide in Vancouver, and they have a mass grave there for the Spanish flu. And like they were talking about getting reefer trucks into Vancouver at one point. And I all I could think about was the mass grave for the Spanish flu. And I was just like, oh my God, like, what are they even going to tell us if this happens? Like, uh, and you don't know, like, how much do they tell us? Well, like,
Yeah,
you
you
know,
don't quite know what's coming over the news, how reality based it is. Like, what is missing from this? What are they not telling me?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, what are the statistics? Like Daniel Defoe had like last year's statistics and this year's statistics. I don't have that. Where do you find that? And if it's all online, it can be changed at any time. And it's like, well, we're really in the dark here. We think we're so bright because we have the internet, but everything is so amorphous on the internet. And
it's very easy to go down that rabbit hole and feel like there's all kinds of conspiracies to keep you uninformed or overly informed or something.
yeah, and where do you find, like, how do you know this is a reliable source on the internet? Like, internet land is a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
you think you're somewhere reliable, and then it's like, oh no, this is like complete bunk.
So somebody in chat says, "Tell us a cool story, please. I would love to hear one." So they're looking for a cool story.
You guys haven't heard cool stories already?
I think we had a cool story, but we could maybe find another one. Thank you for the follow, Mosi Sire and Yedusawa. I said already. I don't know how you make the emojis work. Hyperlinks, do you know how to make the emojis work? You just type the word, don't you? Follow you. Why do we try to beat you when you know you can? My job is secure. No one else wants it. Mine was too. Do you have another story? A short story? Maybe.
Yeah, I can find another quick story
Maybe
here. Let me find.
maybe upbeat to
Yeah, let me find a quick upbeat story here.
yeah, because we're getting to be 9:35, so
Oh, here's a quick one. This one's nice and quick. This is from Chicken Soup from the Soul. Think possible. So it's called Astronauts and Olympians. The quote is, "My father gave me the greatest gift anyone could give another person. He believed in me." And this is a quick reminder that there's never just villains and heroes. People are very complex. So this is a positive side that I'd like to share about my dad. When I was 8, I was diagnosed with asthma. The doctor was very intense about the diagnosis. I was given photocopied pages and stern lectures from the imposing gray-haired man about all the things I would no longer enjoy in life. He told me that I could no longer have stuffed animals and that I couldn't have any rugs, that all the floors had to be cleaned very easily. Even a throw rug was dangerous, as it might not get washed as often as it should. He told me my mattress would have to be wrapped in plastic. Most devastating, he told me I would have to give away my dog and that I could never be around animals again. I clutched my new asthma inhaler as I left his office, shocked. I had just been told that the life that I knew was over and that all the things I loved best were to be taken from me. Even going outside would have to be approached with caution for fear that allergies could be triggered and that could, he declared, kill me. I spent about a month being depressed. I did my chores and I read my books, but the desire to live life had been snuffed out of me. I took my asthma inhaler everywhere I went, and that blue puffer grew huge in my mind. My dad was concerned about the changes in me. I didn't see how worried he was for me at the time. I was too worried that every breath I took might be my last. My mom read over the sheets of warnings with me regularly and scolded me. She was the one who put plastic on my mattress and took away my stuffed animals. When my dad took me out for ice cream, I was worried that he was going to tell me that they had found a home for my dog at last, and that would be the end of her too. I was on the brink of tears as I ate my banana split, but I was trying hard to be brave. He put a magazine on the table. It was open to a picture of a woman running so fast the camera had blurred the picture. I looked up at him as he pointed at the picture with his calloused working man's finger. "Do you see her, sweetheart? She won a medal in the Olympics. And you know what? She had asthma. She had it real bad." Suddenly, the picture took on new meaning. The woman was a freak like me. She had to have her mattress wrapped up. She clutched her blue puffer when she slept, but she had run. She had run like the wind. "Honey, you can worry about what the doctor said, or you can listen to me. You were living and running and playing with your puppy, and all that ever happened was a little wheeze or two. You can do anything you want." My gaze darted back to his eyes from the picture. "Anything?" He nodded earnestly. "Anything at all. You can run in the Olympics, and you can win the gold. You can be an astronaut, and you can go into space. You and I are the same way. You put your mind to it, and there's absolutely nothing too hard for you." The spell had been broken. I knew from his eyes that he was telling me the truth. I knew from the picture in front of me that he had sought out proof. From that day onward, his words rang in my head. I have survived many hardships, accomplished many things, and I've always set my sights higher. I didn't want to run in the Olympics, and I didn't really want to go to the moon, but it was the knowledge that I could that made me strong in other ways. My dog lived to an old age. The plastic came off my bed. My stuffed animals were returned without comment, and I didn't die. Over the years, I had a few asthma attacks that were bad enough to put me in the hospital, but they didn't scare me. I would overcome it. I wasn't just being positive, it was also being certain and having someone believe in me, believe I could be an astronaut or an Olympian. My father's positive attitude changed my life, and it has propelled me ever since.
Aw, that's very sweet. But that is
Sorry,
true.
as asked.
It is true what you say about there's no people aren't all it's not all black and white. People are complex and even and that's what I think what makes it hard when the abuser is someone in your household that you still love that person and they still have their good side even though their behavior is not 100% healthy. They still and it's hard to be a victim outing them because you feel like that you love them and you don't want to hurt them, but they're hurting you.
Exactly.
And
When I
yeah,
was a little
it's
girl,
complicated.
my dad was always my hero.
Yeah, it's very complicated. You're right. Absolutely.
And I mean, we'd be very foolish as writers to think any character was two-dimensional.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yep. And I think it's important that we remember that when we're writing people that they're not. There's more to things, and learning why people do stuff even after the fact is important. We're going to remember that
Exactly.
when we write about women, we're going to remember our mothers and write about the layers that are there, and about our fathers and the layers that are there. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we do. We draw from life.
I like to share that story because it's really easy for people when they hear you had a traumatic childhood or to hear that you were abused to just think, oh, you poor thing, and to not realize that you also had a lot of good things happen to you.
Absolutely, yeah. And for me, coming from being a battered wife, I wouldn't be the strong person I am today if I didn't have to fight through that. And the survival mode is makes me not give up when people say, "Oh, that's really stupid. Why would you want to do that?" I will do it anyways. In fact, the more times you say that it's stupid and I shouldn't, as it will goad me into doing it anyways. I'm, like that. You don't tell me I can't do something.
My mom, she got married when she was 15. She didn't finish high school. My dad left her and left her for another woman and broke her heart. She picked herself up. She had depression, like awful depression. But she picked herself up. She had 3 kids that she had to deal with, and she managed to finish her high school, put herself through university, and become a teacher.
Wow.
And she did that all with this jerk having done this gaslighting and all this other stuff. So if anyone ever tells you that something's impossible or that you were stupid for letting someone hurt you, you weren't. Beautiful, wonderful people have things happen to them and they make amazing recoveries after.
Yeah. It's not what cards you're dealt, it's how you play the game.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Alrighty. So on that note, should we do one more giveaway? And
Sounds
then maybe have it into this chat
Yeah.
because we're getting
Should probably get going before my husband wonders if I got eaten.
Alrighty, let's do one more giveaway. Anybody still in chat hasn't done it yet?
Pretty
It's
much everybody listed in chat is
Everyone listed has already done it? Okay, so let's just do the drum roll then. State Twittery has won the giveaway. There's a name I can actually say. State Twittery.
And then you messed it up.
And then I messed it up. And Tower V Widow has thanks for the follow. Somebody's quoting from Green Eggs and Ham.
There's a big deal about Dr. Seuss lately, so I would assume that's what that's about.
Yeah. Okay, State Twittery, yes, you. And whisper to Hyperdinks 256 and he'll tell you how to claim that giveaway prize. Okay, well, so Virginia, it's been wonderful having you on with us, and
wonderful to get to know you better, and I'll have to look for submissions for you sometime to get involved with your press. And
yeah, we'll have a chat about possible things to do together for sure. I really like that idea of a weekend collaborative fiction day tournament or retreat or something.
I love marathons. They're the best.
Yeah.
They tap right into the subconscious.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll have to think about that. In the meantime, this will a recording of this tonight will go up on YouTube, and I think we talked about I would use the audio for my Don't Say Maybe podcast as well. I think your message is wonderful, and it should be in all of those places. And I'll put your link in the description in where this is kept. And
good.
But you say it again. It's virginiastark.wordpress.com.
Yeah, and I hang out on Facebook a lot. If you just put in Virginia Caraway Stark, you can find me. My page is very public. If you harass me, I'll block you. Otherwise, I keep it as a general site where I update things. And yeah, you can find me there. I'm on Amazon, and I'm also at Tweets by VC.
Alrighty. We got a hello from Venezuela. And
Venezuela.
A follow from somebody who's calling themselves Please Read Green Eggs and Ham. Oh, my followers are wonderful. Okay, so again, thanks, Virginia, and say hello to Tony and the dog and the budgie.
Yes, say hello to all of China.
Yeah. All right.
And say hello to your guy, and it was very nice chatting with you.
Yep, you too.
Okay.
Have a good night.
You too, and hello to all your followers. Good night.